I woke up in a hospital bed thinking I was still driving. My hands were gripping air, turning an invisible steering wheel, while the ceiling above me kept moving closer and farther away like it couldn't decide if I was already gone or still worth keeping. The nurse said I had been like that for hours after the crash. I asked her one question before anything else, not about my legs, not about the pain. "Has my wife been here?" She didn't answer right away. I am 75 years old. I survived a car crash that should have ended me on a winter road outside the city, where the asphalt disappears under ice like it was never meant to carry anything alive. I remember the sound more than the impact, metal folding in on itself, like a cheap chair being crushed slowly, deliberately, without hurry. What I will tell you is not about the accident. It is about what silence does after the body is saved. Because I know something most men only realize when it's too late, not when they lose control of the car, but when they lose control of who stops coming through the hospital door. And I know this better than most because I lay in that room for 43 days, counting footsteps that never belonged to the person I was waiting for. Before the crash, I thought I understood life. I had work, routines, the pride of being needed. I told myself I was providing, not disappearing. I believed that if I kept everything stable on paper, money, home, plans, nothing important could break. But there was one thing I never measured. How many times a person can walk past your silence before they stop noticing you are still alive. The proof came slowly. First a missed call. Then a delayed visit. Then nothing at all. Until the hospital room became just another place I existed in alone. The accident was supposed to be the worst moment of my life. It wasn't. The worst moment came 3 days later, at 9:17 in the morning, when I heard the corridor door open and felt my chest move before my eyes even turned. I remember thinking, this is her. But it wasn't. It was a cleaning cart. A woman humming under her breath like the room I was in mattered less than the stain she was wiping. That was the first time I understood something had already ended, not my walking, not my driving. Something between me and the person I called my wife. There was no argument. No final sentence. Just absence, repeated enough times to become normal. But something changed on the 17th day. A young physiotherapist came in, too young to understand why old men go quiet instead of angry. She didn't ask me about my wife. She didn't ask about the crash. She said one thing while adjusting my blanket: "You're still here. So we start from here." That sentence sounded simple. It wasn't. Because for the first time, nobody was asking me to explain my past, only to move my next finger. That became my solution. Not a miracle. Not forgiveness from others, a rule I could actually live inside. Stop waiting for the person who stopped arriving. Start noticing the ones who still enter the room. I started counting differently after that. Not footsteps I hoped for, but footsteps that were real. The nurse who always came back at 6:40 even when she was tired. The cleaner who once turned off the radio because she saw me trying to sleep. The physiotherapist who said, again, not poor you, every time I failed to stand. Small things. Repeated things. Real things. And slowly, the hospital stopped feeling like a place of absence. It became a place of presence I had ignored for years. Then, on day 31, I asked the nurse again about my wife. This time she didn't hesitate. She called once after the crash, she said. Asked if you were stable. That was it. I expected anger. What came instead was something quieter. Clarity. Because I finally understood people don't always leave loudly. Sometimes they just stop building a life around you. And you keep standing in a doorway that no longer leads anywhere. If there is a solution in all of this, it is not to chase people who are gone. It is to stop making absence your only measurement of love. You can miss someone and still notice who is actually holding your present day together. You can grieve what disappeared without becoming blind to what stayed. And maybe this is what I should have known at 50, not at 75. Healing is not only in the body coming back. It is in learning to recognize the room you are still being carried through. Now, I don't stare at doors the same way. I still remember my wife's footsteps, but I no longer mistake silence for promise. Because some people stop coming. And some people never stopped arriving in the first place. I just wasn't looking at them.